We're going to go through and rank these rookie running backs. The draft is approaching extremely quickly. It is dang near April. I don't think it will be April when we release this video, but it's dang near April, which means two things. Number one, the draft is going to be on everybody's mind for the next 30 days. We're going to pump out as much draft content as we can. But number two, that means the Colts should have a quarterback within the next couple months. Please. We're really hoping, waiting. But we're going to talk about rookie running backs today. We're going to put them into tiers, and we're going to say where things stand as of right now, 1 month before the draft. Obviously, this is all subject to change. Obviously, a lot is going to change after they're drafted when we actually see their capital, things like that, and their landing spot. But this is where we've got them at today. So before we begin, make sure you like this video. Please hit the thumbs up. It helps us out a lot. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. We've got Dynasty content coming out every single week. Promise. I took a little bit of a break, but we promise we're back, and we're going to come out with all that content. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. That is a free way to help us out, and it gives you access to our videos right when they come out. So that's a good thing too. All right, there are 12 running backs here that we've decided to rank into 4 tiers. Obviously, some things changed after the combine, and we saw some stuff that shifted our rankings personally. But I think going through and evaluating these guys now, it's going to be helpful for people, especially the people who are drafting rookies before the NFL draft. But for the majority of us that are drafting after the NFL draft, this is just kind of a benchmark to see where these guys finally end up once the draft actually happens. And obviously in the S tier, we're going to have Bijan Robinson. So with Bijan, I'll take the easy one and I'll talk about Bijan. But
since I did last week, by myself,
sorry about that. With Bijan, there's not much else left to say. Regardless of landing spot, he's going to be the RB1 in this class. He's going to be in a tier of his own. There's some fear that I think that he goes to the Patriots. It's Bijan. Don't worry about that. Where I actually think he's going to go, like just off the top of my head, is the Cowboys, which I think is hilarious.
That is actually hilarious. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, and I mean, it just seems like it would be the Jerry Jones thing to do. And obviously, them letting Zeke walk and them having Tony Pollard as their running back that they are going to give carries to and work out of the backfield right now. The main one, I don't know if I'm sure they have other running backs, but he's the guy right now. I don't think they're going to stick with it like that. I think they're going to draft a running back regardless, and I think Bijan is going to be a candidate for them. I think that will be very, very interesting. I think that would be a classic Jerry Jones pick. But with Bijan, obviously extreme athleticism. He's got great skill in the passing game as well as obviously on the ground. The size, not a concern. He's got workhorse size. The combine results in terms of his athleticism, he came out looking like one of the more athletic backs in this draft. To go with that size, there's really not anything to dislike about Bijan Robinson. He's going to remain in this top tier. That's not going to change, so we're used to that at this point, but Bijan Robinson, not enough can be said about him. He's the 101 in Dynasty drafts, and I'm sure there will be a discussion once Anthony Richardson goes in the top 5 about who should be the 101, but right now it's going to be Bijan. It's been Bijan. There's nothing new on Bijan Robinson. And then we're going down to the next tier here, and we've got Zach Charbonnet.
Yeah, this is a little bit gutsy on our part, but we are comfortable doing it because of Zach Charbonnet's ability to be a bell cow running back, a 3-down back with his receiving upside and with his bruiser ability, obviously in college. His production we've talked about before, but great production at UCLA. His usage actually went down just a little bit his senior year, but his efficiency went up. He had more rushing yards than he did his junior season. He stayed that extra year, but he's still fine age-wise. He's still 22 years old. 37 receptions. That was really the biggest, most exciting thing that we saw out of his senior season, is he really proved that he can be a PPR threat. And that's what we are so excited with Charbonnet about going into his rookie season in the NFL. We think at this point, we think he's a lock to go second round. And we have him over Jahmyr Gibbs because of his size. He's 6 foot 214. He has a better BMI. His speed is 4.53, which is great. That's honestly even a little bit better than I thought it was going to be. And every single measurable at the combine did not give you any doubt with him whatsoever. So for me, I think Jeremy's comp, like you said before, has been like a more athletic James Conner. Well, we know what James Conner is, and he's very underrated right now because he's old. But Charbonnet is, if he's a more athletic James Conner, that's borderline elite production. Absolutely. That's just elite production, actually.
And it's going to be regardless of draft capital, I think, with Zach Charbonnet, because honestly, when I'm thinking about where I'm expecting him to get drafted, I'm expecting him to go in the second or third round. And Jahmyr Gibbs, who I'll talk about now, is a guy who could potentially go in the first round. He honestly could. You're looking at Jahmyr Gibbs, and everybody's freaking out the day that he measured in because he's 5'9", 199. Okay, obviously the size, you have to ask the size question. You can't harp on size with some guys and then not for others. It just doesn't make any sense. So with Jahmyr Gibbs, it's something that we have to monitor. However, Jahmyr Gibbs from a production standpoint in college, he left nothing to be desired. I mean, he was used effectively in the passing game as well as the running game. I think he was efficient enough on the ground. Like I don't really have any worries about that, but he had dang near 1,000 rushing yards this last year to go along with 450 receiving yards. I really like production. I mean, when you translate what he did from a production standpoint at Alabama to fantasy points, I mean, the man scored a lot of fantasy points. So, I mean, I think there is an NFL team that can use that skill set, that wants a Jahmyr Gibbs. You see that type of running back becoming more popular in the NFL today.
And the Eagles.
Yeah, potentially. Oh, the Eagles will never draft a running back ever. Don't spare me the comment.
Now you guys have the GOAT Rashad Penny. You guys are set. You're set at running back.
We've got a video coming out with Rashad Penny in it this week. It'll be interesting. I know that doesn't sound interesting, but it is.
Yeah. Pause. Jahmyr Gibbs. Do you think do you have Charbs over Jahmyr Gibbs too? Personally?
I have no problem putting Zach. I mean, look, Zach Charbonnet has been a guy that I've personally been high on since last year's cycle when I watched this film. Loved him. And I think he should have come out last year. I wish he would have. But, looking at Zach Charbonnet, I think that he does have the workhorse size, obviously, that Jahmyr Gibbs doesn't. He's going to be used in a different way. But with the athleticism really not being a super huge question at that size, I like Zach Charbonnet enough to say that I think that's fine. But, and just wrapping up on Jahmyr Gibbs, obviously he ran a 4.36, so his 40 time was fine.
It's good.
Plenty fast, and a 34-inch vertical. So looking at Jahmyr Gibbs, and I think he's going to be a safe pick in Dynasty rookie drafts this year. I think the main thing is going to be, are people taking him over Jackson Smith and Jigba? Because they absolutely shouldn't be. They just shouldn't be. So it'll be interesting to see his draft capital is going to affect a lot about where he goes.
I really want to see him in an elite offense too, because that's where he's going to, in my opinion, thrive. Because he's not going to be a guy who's a threat really in the red zone in the run game. They're not using him to punch the ball in at the goal line. So if a team like the Eagles gets him, that doesn't hurt Jalen Hurts' production, and that doesn't hurt Jahmyr Gibbs at all because he's a PPR threat.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. TayJ Spears will be at the top of our B tier, and this is a guy that I know that there was the Twitter cult that was in on TayJ Spears, but we were in on TayJ a little bit before that. Simon is particularly high on TayJ Spears. In fact, I think Simon said that he's the RB1 in this class. Simon, when he likes somebody, they're automatically like the best person he's ever seen. But he was talking about TayJ Spears last week, and tell us a little bit about TayJ and why we like his skill set and why it's going to translate well potentially to the NFL and what a team might need out of a back like him.
Yeah, so TayJ Spears is 21.7 years old, so he'd be 22 going into this season. That's fine. His career was a little bit delayed coming into the NFL just because of the ACL tear that he suffered, I believe, his sophomore season. But his senior season, man, he just went off. He technically broke out as a freshman, which is great. Last season, he was the bell cow at Tulane. He had 1,500 rushing yards, almost 1,600 rushing yards, 21 total touchdowns, and some receiving efficiency that was impressive. He didn't have a ton of receiving volume, but it was good enough that you'd be like, okay, we can build off that. If you're an NFL team looking at him as a prospect, get him in the second round. I love his explosiveness and elusiveness. And it's funny to say that for a guy who tore his ACL. You don't really see that from a guy who has had a major injury like that before, but he is so good at vision overall and really finding not just the holes on the line, but being able to bounce off contact and find that outside lane where he can outrun pretty much anyone. He didn't run the 40 time at the combine, but I'm not really concerned about that at all. I think he's going to be a good value going into this next Dynasty rookie draft. I could see him. I'm going to call my shot at this point. I think he's going to end up being a late first round pick not in the NFL, a late first round pick in Dynasty rookie drafts. Avery almost had a heart attack.
No, he's like. No,
I think
not.
he's gonna. I think he could be a late first round dynasty.
I think he could too. I think the back end of those drafts right now is a little bit.
It's up in the air.
Yeah, I think it is too.
I think Addison falls too.
I'm thinking you might be right. Sean Tucker is going to be the next guy here. And honestly, with Sean Tucker, this is just a huge, big, fat, I don't know. Because with Sean Tucker, obviously he didn't do anything at the Combine. There have been questions about, his athleticism for his size. There is this. There was a tweet that came out. It wasn't able to participate at the NFL Combine due to a medical exclusion, but he went through his own Combine and posted a video of it on Twitter. Take these results with a grain of salt, because anytime you decide not to test in front of people but test in your own personal thing, like, you could definitely skew the results. But the results were a 41.5-inch vertical, which would have been first, 4.3340, which would have been second, and a 28 bench press, which would have been first. If those are accurate numbers, Sean Tucker might be actually moving up a tier. I question the validity of that data, just because I think for him to come out with that, 2 weeks after the Combine, and I mean, he probably could have just done it at the Combine if he was really, if he's really able to do it that soon. Like, he probably just could have done it. I don't know if those are official numbers. I don't think we'll ever have official numbers. I think this is going to be a guy that we're not going to know on until we get to draft day and we get to see his draft capital. But obviously in college, especially this last year, he took a little bit of a step down, honestly. 1,500 rushing yards in 2021 and only 1,000 in 2022. His receptions obviously went up from 20 to 36 year over year, but his yards stayed the same. So he was slightly less efficient in the passing game. Not to mention the big play that you saw Sean Tucker make, the one where he took a screen pass. It was I think they were playing Louisville or something like that, but that was like 22% of his receiving yardage on that one play. Which, anytime I see a Sean Tucker tweet, I see that play, which is great, but that was one play. Like, I mean, we know he's a track athlete, so we know he is athletic, and I'm sure those numbers are going to be somewhere near close. However, again, we have some questions about size. He's going to be 5'9" something, I'm sure. Hopefully closer to 210. This is we'll see. We'll see on Sean Tucker. Roschon Johnson is next out of Texas.
Yeah, so Roschon Johnson, we fully admit to we're latecomers to this party for sure. We did not call our shot on Roschon. We didn't really think he was going to be relevant whatsoever. Didn't watch a ton of him in the early stages in terms of film analysis. Just didn't really expect this. And then there's kind of some buzz going on, and then there's his Combine performance and his measurables, his size, and you're like, okay, he could actually be something. He has the size. He has the speed. The speed isn't impressive. He ran a 4.58. It's not like he's, but you're not getting Roschon Johnson for, that speedster ability or that receiving upside. He's definitely a guy who you would expect to be starting out as an RB2 going into the NFL. But I think he will get an opportunity at some point to get a starting opportunity. And I mean, he could run with that, pun intended. He backed up Bijan Robinson at Texas. That's going to be the biggest knock against him. But I also think that could be the biggest plus to his character and his work ethic. And the fact that, I mean, he knew that he was playing behind Bijan Robinson and he could have transferred to anywhere he wanted to make a name for himself at a less renowned school, but he did stay. So we have seen successful running backs come out of the same schools who played behind more elite prospects. I mean, you saw this with Miles Sanders at Penn State. You saw this with Michael Carter and Javonte Williams. Yes, Michael Carter got Michael Cartered by Breece Hall, but the point still stands. Roschon Johnson could do something in the NFL in his draft. I still don't see him going anywhere earlier than the third round in the NFL draft, but I mean, that's enough where he could definitely be a relevant asset.
Yeah, absolutely. And a guy similar to that, not similar in terms of play style or size, but in terms of situation, is Devonta Chain. A guy that really you could move him anywhere in this tier, and I probably wouldn't argue with it. As high as probably RB4. But with Devonta Chain, I think going into the Combine, the talk was, okay, Devonta Chain's going to come in here, and he's threatening to break the 40 record. Actually, I know it was the talk because I saw multiple people using that as a discussion point. When in reality, Devonta Chain did not threaten the 40, which his 40 time was fine. I mean, a 4.32, but you're talking about I mean, what, 0.3, 0.4 seconds faster than Jahmyr Gibbs. So it's not like game-breaking speed here. I mean, he's still elite in that, and I want to also differentiate. 40-yard dash time doesn't always translate to game speed. I think he is faster than what his 40 time lets on, and quicker especially. But, Devonta Chain's biggest thing was always going to be his size. So at 5'8.5", 188, I really wanted him to come out and run in the 4.2s. I did. When you're talking about a guy where speed is his elite attribute, where speed is what's going to put him above his colleagues in the draft class, I want to see him run faster than that. And I know that may be picky, but in reality, he didn't do it. And 33-inch vertical, so he's plenty athletic. I mean, the dude's an athlete. The dude is fast. He is. But with that being said, I think there's a really wide range of outcomes for Devonta Chain. I could see him going in the late second round to a team that will pair him with a back that is already established. For example, him going to play with Jonathan Taylor of the Colts, and the Colts using him in that
really
role.
Nice.
I think he'll be really good at that. The problem is, guys, we're playing fantasy football. Because as an NFL player, I think I'm really going to like Devonta Chain and what he offers the team. But what I'm talking about his fantasy football production, I'm not sure he's ever going to get to a level to where it's worth drafting him anywhere over like the early second in Dynasty rookie drafts.
Or over Jahmyr Gibbs. He doesn't have enough size or height for an elite team to really make him that PPR threat. He is going to be a guy, in our opinion, that's going to be drafted as that RB2, that receiving threat, that complementary piece. I can't even.
That's good.
Can't even talk. But the Chris Johnson comp, like we've heard that a lot, and it really is just because of the speed.
Yeah, no, I don't see it, but I mean the other thing is like when you're talking about Jahmyr Gibbs, I mean Jahmyr Gibbs has size on him, but and the speed is almost equivalent from a quantitative standpoint, but Jahmyr Gibbs' route tree is much more diverse than Devonta Chain. I mean, Devonta Chain is capable in the receiving game, but Jahmyr Gibbs, I mean, his route tree is ridiculous. That's why he's such a valuable prospect to NFL teams. So we'll see. Devonta Chain is going to be draft capital dependent, but he's just not somebody from a fantasy production standpoint that I'm looking at, and I think he's going to score big down the road here. But still like him as a prospect, absolutely. All right, and then our last tier here, we're going to start out with things with Kendric Miller.
Yeah, so Kendric Miller is another guy. He's been pretty quiet post-combine, and just with all of the buzz of the guys that have risen and even some of the guys that have fallen. He has struggled with injury, which is why he didn't do anything at the combine, but he's 5'11", 215. That's at least what we assume. Did he measure out at the combine at least? Or did he even go?
I think he did measure out, yeah.
He did measure out, okay, so that's accurate. His BMI is 30, that's good. He isn't even 21 years old yet. Obviously going to TCU, which is a great school, had plenty of success this year, 1,400 rushing yards. His receiving upside was not too great. Again, we don't really know what that'll amount to in the NFL, but there just isn't much in addition that I have to say about Kendric Miller right now, because there just isn't enough to go off of that's changed. We know about Kendric Miller. We watched him play during towards the end of the season, and there's nothing that's gone on that really should be a reason for why he's falling in terms of what's been going on. So I think his success is going to be purely dependent on his draft capital. Again, he could easily be a tier above where we have him right now, and I don't have a problem with that at all.
I agree with you 100% there. And then Tank Bigsby, there's a weird like small cult on Twitter that is just like devoted to making sure Tank Bigsby is like ranked in the top 3 of running backs of this class.
I don't understand.
And I don't really see it with Tank. He's the Sky Moore of this year's class in terms of he's being overinflated because of his name. Yeah. So cool name. 6'2", he's got workhorse size. So you're looking at that, you go down the list and you say, okay, check. And then you get to his athleticism and you're like, this leaves a little bit to be desired. I mean, he's not as good as Zach Charbonnet as a runner, in my opinion, and he's slower than Zach Charbonnet by a little bit. But 4.56 40-yard dash, and then a 32-inch vertical is fine. So his athleticism is decent. It's decent. It's not as bad as I thought it was going to be, but at the same time, just purely from a runner standpoint, like I think Tank Bigsby is going to be a good NFL backup. That's just what I think he's going to be. I don't think he's a guy that's going to go in and split time with somebody. I don't think he's a guy that's going to go in and start somewhere. I think he's a guy that's going to be a good NFL backup. So
yeah, he was a guy that averaged this past season 5.4 yards per carry, which was definitely an improvement compared to what he did last season, when that was really when you heard the biggest Tank Bigsby hype was after 2021. You're like, okay, this guy's going to go crazy his junior season. He didn't really in terms of of numbers in total stats, but in efficiency, he did improve. So I guess that is the one plus that we have for Tank. But again, I mean, I just think there's better, more talented guys than him.
There are. Yeah, absolutely. You got Zach Evans next.
Okay, so Zach Evans is a guy who has fallen significantly. I mean, we're talking about a guy who in the initial stages we had him probably, I think as high as our RB3 in the class. I mean, he and Sean Tucker were RB3, RB4 for us. This is, I kind of want to hear what you have to say about this too, Avery. His 40 time was a 4.51, which is fine. His size is concerning for the type of running back that he is. He's 5'11", 202, and you are going into the draft, going into the NFL, expecting this guy to, one, be bigger than he is because of the type of running back he is. He is supposed to be a bruiser, 144 rushing attempts, 936 rushing yards, only 12 receptions for 119 yards. That's not going to cut it in the NFL. And could that change for him? It could, but I mean, I think he had plenty of opportunity at Ole Miss, and it just
he did. And take Kenneth,
it's scaring me.
Take Kenneth Walker as an example. Kenneth Walker last year, we had a lot of questions about his ability in the receiving game. But what we did have with Kenneth Walker is the size was fine, the athleticism was fine, and his rushing production in college was off the charts. Now you have Zach Evans.
After transferring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now we have Zach Evans. We have questions about his receiving capabilities. You're looking, he didn't really blow the doors off of every college defense. I mean, you're talking about 900.
No, it took a transfer for him to be really relevant too.
Then you look at
that's the thing.
Again, the type of running back, you're exactly right. Because he plays bigger, I think, than he actually is. But at the same time, it's not always going to fly in the NFL. Exactly. That's something that you can get away with.
Exactly. It's actually that's kind of the same theme, not as dramatic, but the same reason Deuce Vaughn is pretty much off our board in Dynasty rookie drafts is your production can be elite in college. The NFL is a different game. You don't have to be a Dynasty Einstein to know that.
But what's funny is his production wasn't even elite. So there's really, there's so much to be desired with Zach Evans at this point with the size. There were a lot of questions because there was a lot of different conflicting reports on his size. This isn't the answer we wanted with his size, honestly.
No, not at all.
So, all right, Izzy Abanikanda is going to be next. This is a guy that I think could be maybe a dark horse to skyrocket up these boards a little bit.
Another guy where nothing's really changing.
Yeah, again, only 20 years old, so he's good there. But he had 1,400 rushing yards this year on 239 attempts and 21 total touchdowns. So obviously from a college production standpoint, you're looking at Izzy Abanikanda, and you're really, really excited about that. Only 12 receptions for 146 yards, so he's got a lot to prove there. And I think that's one of the main reasons we have him down here. Is he hasn't really proven yet that he has both the skill in the running game and the receiving game in terms of having a route tree, in terms of getting the volume in the receiving game as well. But with Izzy Abanikanda, I think I don't think he tested at the combine, so I don't think we actually have. But I think he did. He was 5'10", 216, so size wise, I think that's fine. Obviously for BMI guys, that's a win. But a guy I think, in my opinion, that has the potential to climb up, but I think we're comfortable putting him here now, and then we'll wrap it up with Chase Brown. Yeah,
Chase Brown was one of the most productive college running backs in the NFL, in college this year. And I mean, the biggest thing, which is the biggest concern, is he's 23 years old. It took him forever to break out. He was playing in Canada, and then he is 22 years old until he finally is like a relevant running back, rushing for over 1,000 yards, and that's just a big concern. He's not playing at a powerhouse running back school like Alabama, where understandably it takes him a few years to be successful. Chase Brown really had to fight his way to be such a hyper-productive running back, and while that's impressive and encouraging from a character and work ethic standpoint, again, how much is that going to translate to the NFL and his ability to produce?
Yep.
He doesn't really have any measurable concerns. His 40-yard dash is great. His height's great. His weight's great. BMI, great. Age, not so much.
Pass protection.
Pass protection, definitely a question.
I meant pass protection. His pass pro. I said it wrong. His pass pro's obviously it's bad too. It's really bad. So
yes,
So again, just kind of a bookmark of where we are. We're a month away from the draft. Probably won't do another one of these until after the draft now. So
there's nothing that should be changing from here until the draft.
Yeah, that is correct. So we'll see how this all shakes out. It'll be interesting to kind of go through and grade how we rank these guys. But Draft time is approaching, so make sure you subscribe to the channel, make sure you like this video, and make sure you head over to our locals page. We're going to open up our last listener league of the year this week, so make sure you get over there, get in our last listener league. We really appreciate it. It costs $3 a month, which really isn't that much when you think about it, so we appreciate your support. It keeps our channel up and going. And make sure, again, like and subscribe. That's also an easy way to support the channel. As always, we appreciate you all joining us and listening. We'll see you later.